But Moses was sent by God to get the people out. Where was Moses going to take them to? Yes, Christina.
The promised land.
The promised land, the land that it was described as overflowing with milk and honey. A land of milk and honey, it doesn't mean that you're wading through milk and honey all over the place. It's not like it's flooded with milk and honey. It's just God's way of saying that this is going to be a great land, there's going to be loads to eat, you know. And bearing in mind that the people had been, for 400 years, they'd been slaves and could only eat what the Egyptians gave them. And God is saying you're going to have your own land, you're going to be able to put your own crops down, you can have your own herds of cattle and sheep. And first of all, God took them through the Red Sea to show them his power. And I think what he wanted to do on the way to the promised land, he wanted to show them, this is who I am, and I want you to understand and get to know who I am, because they didn't really know him. And he said, I'm going to show you how I'm going to operate so that you get used to the way I do things, okay? So that we can build up this relationship. And so Moses said to the people, he says, we're going to take 12 people, and the 12 people are going to go into the land of Canaan. The land of Canaan is what I've promised you, and you 12, you're going to go in there and you're going to check it out. You're going to go and spy in the land to see what kind of land it is. So these guys, they left the rest of the Israelites, and for 40 days they went into the land and they checked it out. And as they were exploring the land, now probably they had to be creep around because there were people there were different groups of people there, and as they moved around they had to hide so that nobody saw them. And what they did, they came across some cities. What can you tell from that? Yes, Christine?
The city has a big wall around it.
So the city is strong and fortified, the Bible says. And Kai, what else do you think? What about the people?
I think they're bigger.
Bigger and stronger people. Now, they're not like giants from fairy stories, okay? They weren't like as big as houses, but they were tall people, okay? And they were big people living in this land. And when the spies saw how big the people were and saw how strong the cities were, they got a bit frightened, thinking, wow, we're not as big as these guys. We're not as strong as these guys. Anybody know what they found to eat there? Christina, what did they find?
Grapes.
What kind of grapes? Shriveled up grapes, dry, rotten
no,
grapes?
No, they found a cluster of grapes, and they were really good grapes. Big.
Look at the size of these grapes. Now, it doesn't say how big they are, but you get the idea that the grapes here were unlike any grapes they'd ever seen before. And so they not only got grapes, but they got figs and they got pomegranates. And finally, when they'd gathered all this stuff together, they went back to see Moses and the Israelites and said, this is what we found. And so Moses says, well, what do you reckon? Shall we go in and take it then? Because he was waiting on these 12 to give a report back to see what they wanted to do. Now, these two guys here, okay, two of them are called Caleb and Joshua, I think. So Caleb and Joshua, they said, we can certainly take the land because God will be with us. They said, yeah, the cities are big and the people are big and the cities are strong, but didn't God open up the Red Sea to bring us out of there? Didn't God give us food every day? Didn't he send so many quail that we were knee-deep in quail for ages? He says, we know who God is. God will do it for us. It doesn't matter how big the people are or how strong the cities are. What did the other 10 say? Jonathan?
This is a horrible city, we can't take over.
Well, they said, these people are too big for us. No, there's no way we can do this. We're like, when we look at them and we compare ourselves with them, we feel like we're grasshoppers, like we're tiny little people compared to how big the giants are there.
Yeah,
he says, there's no way we can do it. And so because 10 said no and only 2 said yes, Moses says, well, we put it to a vote. That was the fair way we did it. We chose one man from every one of the 12 tribes to go. He says, but the decision is we're not going to go in. How do you think God felt about that? What do you think, Kai?
Upset that they
Really upset because they didn't trust him. And I think God felt to himself, you are not trusting me. You are not trusting me. I have given you every reason why you should trust me, and you simply refuse to do it. He says, okay, well, you're now going to have the consequences. How many years did they walk around the wilderness? Not 12? 40 years. Can you imagine that? 40 years. But after 40 years, every one of the people who was over 20 years old died in the desert. Every single one. Only 2 people who were over 20 at this moment lived to go into the promised land? Which two do you think they were? Christine?
Joshua and Caleb.
And Joshua, yeah, they went in. And I love this story because it seems to me that they carried on being faithful. They didn't just give up and say, oh Lord, why are we getting punished along with everyone else? They must have been really thinking, we could have done this. Imagine for 40 years saying to all your friends, why didn't you guys believe? Why did you say no? God would have done it for us. And to have to live with those people, because it wasn't like God said, well, you two alone can go into the promised land. No, they had to stay with the people. And I think sometimes as a Christian, do you ever think to yourselves, you know, being a Christian doesn't make us richer than anyone else. Being a Christian doesn't make us healthier than anyone else. It doesn't mean we get to live longer on the earth. It doesn't mean we get a bigger house. Sometimes we think to ourselves, well, what's the difference between our lives and all the people we live among? But the difference is this, that God says for those who have trusted in him and who know what trust is and who stay faithful to God, when this life is over, we're the ones who have trusted, who will go into God's promised land, who will be with him forever in heaven. And we hope to persuade as many people as we can to come with us. But it's only those who have trusted in God who will end up being with God forever